Hi, welcome to this webinar. We're going to be talking about special guardianship orders and children's education in Wales. So I am Lorna Stabler. I'm a researcher at CASCADE at Cardiff University, and I'm leading a Nuffield Foundation funded study focused on special guardianship orders and thinking about how they're used across Wales and kind of what the implications might be for children's education. Over to you, Daisy.
Hi, my name is Daisy Chaudhuri and I am a consultant on Lorna's project. My interest in this is that I was a teacher and a special guardian.
So I'm just going to start off with a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. So at the start, I'll just give a little brief introduction to special guardianship orders and kind of some of the legal implications of them. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges that might be relevant for schools and teachers thinking about special guardianship orders. And then Daisy's going to talk a little bit about her experience and really how teachers can support special guardians and children. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about our research study and how you can get involved. So first off, what is a special guardianship order? A special guardianship order is usually for a child who is living with someone that they have a previous relationship with. So that might be a family member, so a grandparent, an auntie, a sibling, or a family friend, or potentially a foster carer that they'd been previously living with. It's a legal order which gives parental rights to a guardian to make some of those key decisions about a child. And many, but not all children with a special guardianship order will have formerly been looked after under a care order. But now that the special guardianship order in place, they are no longer classed as a looked after child. So many children with a special guardianship order will have experienced childhood trauma, separation and loss, and have faced some of the same challenges as children who are looked after. As you can see at the bottom here, there is a link to a document produced by AFCA Cymru, which tells people a little bit more about special guardianship orders. So do feel free to take a look at that after this session. So what might some of the challenges be that children with special guardianship orders might face that you might encounter as a teacher in a school? So research shows that children with early experiences of poor attachment or neglect are less likely to do well at school than their peers. And that's for many different reasons. So past loss, neglect, or trauma can mean that a child may be more likely to struggle to manage relationships with teachers and their peers, and they may find it more difficult to cope with transitions such as moving schools or class, or other changes that they're experiencing outside of the school environment as well. Special guardians and carers may not always feel like their situation is understood by schools, and they may find it difficult to speak with teachers if they feel like they're not going to be taken seriously, or if they feel like teachers aren't really going to understand their perspective and their kind of experience. A lack of understanding about special guardianship orders can also create confusion for teachers, but guardians themselves as well, around kind of parental responsibility, who's taking key decisions, who should be involved in conversations about a child's education and well-being. So I'm just going to hand over to Daisy now, who's going to talk a little bit about her experience of being a special guardian and bringing up her children. Over to you, Daisy.
Hi, my name is Daisy Chaudhuri and my interest in this project comes because I was a special guardian for nearly 15 years to my 3 children, the youngest of whom turned 18 this year. Before that, I was a foster carer and before that a secondary school teacher for 10 years. I'm also adopted myself and grew up in a fostering family. So why is it important to look to support all children on the special guardianship order and those who are in kinship care or adopted? I think the most important things to remember are that firstly, children, whatever their legal status, who've been separated from their birth families at whatever age, will have suffered trauma which will have a lifelong impact on them. I have 3 children, each of whom presented the effects of trauma in 3 very different ways. But for each, it was believed that their global developmental delay and learning difficulties would mean that they would have poor educational outcomes, that they would not manage in a mainstream setting, and would need specialist units. I believe that with the right support between home and school, these outcomes could be improved. My eldest, who is also autistic, has achieved GCSEs and a level 3 qualification. Having the most profound needs, he will always need support, but is living semi-independently. The second has achieved GCSEs, AS and A levels, and my youngest has achieved GCSEs, 2 years of animal care, and has now set up her own pet sitting and dog walking business. So how were these different outcomes achieved? First and foremost, with hard work from all the young people. But this could not have been done without excellent support from each of their schools. Being willing to listen to myself, other professionals, and subsequently the children when they were old enough, in order to put in place support and to adapt that support when needed. In some ways, it was easier to get support for the eldest because of the autism diagnosis, and because his statement also included trauma-related issues, which meant that his school began to understand that even though he seemed okay in school, he would often hold it all in, walk through the door at home, and have a complete meltdown. This is a child who swung between hypoarousal, freeze behaviour in school, conform and behave, and a need to be in control at all times because school was a dangerous place, and hyperarousal, having a complete meltdown when he came home to let me know that he felt unsafe that day. Something would have triggered his trauma, no matter how small, and unpicking that became crucial to understanding his behaviour and to helping him feel safe in school. My second child has mental health issues and huge anxiety. Her behaviour often presented as odd and disruptive, which meant she would get into trouble and underperform. With the school's willingness to listen, we got her therapist to do an inset session on the impact of trauma and her responses to it, and the school was amazing. Throughout the rest of her time there, they tailored support to her needs, and adaptive support was put in place for her. Adaptive because her needs constantly changed depending on how safe she felt. Weeks could go by with everything okay, and then one small thing could happen that would mean that she would stop feeling safe and all of her anxieties and resulting behaviours would return. Perhaps in many ways, the most interesting of the three is the youngest, the one we should all look out for as carers and teachers. She had mild learning difficulties and had access to support, but on the whole, she seemed to have suffered less from her early years trauma and seemed fine in school. She was quiet, polite, helpful, had some friends, and I was told that she often tried her best, but did lack focus and could be a daydreamer, but she was no trouble. As she progressed in secondary school, things deteriorated, and she started to struggle in lessons. She told me that she hadn't understood, she hadn't heard, and that it hadn't been explained. The school said the opposite, and that she just didn't listen, lacked focus and concentration, didn't want to learn, and could be quite rude at times, which was totally unlike her. She also started getting physical symptoms, joint pains, unexplained deafness, and other things which went on for months, and all needed investigation because they could have been the cause of her change in behaviour. However, when she started eventually having meltdowns about going into school, it became more obvious that something about school had triggered her trauma response and was making her feel unsafe. In the end, this turned out to be some other children who were targeting her. To some of their behaviour seemed annoying, but not too bad. To a child who'd suffered from early years trauma, they had triggered huge anxiety, depression, and a deterioration in her ability to learn, since her being was totally focused on trying to keep safe. The trouble was that because to start with, she had kind of shut down, kept quiet, and tried to get on with things, believing that she needed to go into freeze mode and not draw attention to herself. She would say everything was okay and would not talk, so she went under the radar. We all at first just thought that her learning difficulties were making it harder for her as she got older. It took 2 years of investigations of different physical symptoms, trying to find out what was wrong, trying to solve the issue. But by the end of that time, she hated school and her learning had deteriorated to such an extent that it was obvious that she could not cope with GCSEs in a mainstream setting. Luckily for her, lockdown came, which gave her a chance to recover her equilibrium, regain her focus on learning since she felt safe, and once she realised that she could go to college and achieve her dream of working with animals, things completely changed for her. Her outlook changed, her ability to learn changed, and her enthusiasm for learning changed. She still has times when her anxiety levels rise to the point that she has physical symptoms, but now we know what to look for, we can help her deal with it. For me and for her teachers, she had always seemed like the easy one compared to the other two, who needed constant attention for all involved. It took for things to go radically wrong for all of us, including me, to understand that early years trauma was just there under the surface, waiting to overwhelm her. If we'd all noticed and understood the early signs, i.e., deteriorating health, lack of focus, deterioration in learning outcomes, etc., and connected them to trauma rather than her unwillingness to learn, we might have been able to put in the right support sooner rather than later. The main things I have learned from looking after three such different children is firstly that all children separated from family at whatever age will suffer from the impact of trauma at some time in their life. Secondly, that trauma is so complex and can manifest itself in so many different ways that both as parents and teachers, we need to not only understand the obvious signs, but also be prepared to look for the subtle ones that can be easily missed, as this will give the best outcome for children who have suffered the trauma of separation from their birth family, whether they be looked after in kinship care, on an SGO, or adopted. So, what are some of the signs we can look for? Well, attachment disorders, unable to keep friends, mixed with peers, controlling behaviours towards peers, intense attachments to either peers and or staff. Hyperarousal, that is fight or flight. Hypervigilance, always checking who is around, who is coming in the classroom. Or hypoarousal, a child that feels numb, depressed, disconnected. It is a freeze response, a defence mechanism, shut down so you don't have to confront perceived threats, which could be anything and everything from other children to staff, classroom, playtimes, or sensory overload. This is a child that keeps under the radar by being quiet and conforming in school, but they may explode at home. They may be anxious and clingy. They may have low level or constant health issues, or low level behavioural issues, not quite doing what you ask them to do. This is their way of staying in control. They may be disassociated, that is, their brain disconnects from the world around them in order to keep safe. Although they may be physically present, emotionally and psychologically, they are cut off. They may not cry when they hurt. They may be daydreaming. They may lack concentration, be quiet and withdrawn, be socially isolated, tired, worry over small things. They have lots of needs or worries in different situations, for example, break times, changing for sports, or any small change in their routines. They may have low self esteem and need constant reassurance. They may never put their hand up or be eager to please by constantly asking to do small tasks. The child may be unable to engage in play and in the playground may hang around with staff rather than engage with their peers. Things to consider may be contact and its impact. Their behaviour may change with the time of years, for example, birthdays, festivals, and their impact on them when they were removed from their families. So, what are some of the preventatives that we can put in place? A good understanding of the impact of trauma, i.e., removal from birth family and possibly siblings. Understanding that regularly used behavioural techniques that work with a securely attached child won't necessarily work with a child that has experienced trauma, e.g., reward based systems rarely work. Sharing information across the school is really important so that everybody engaged with the child knows what is going on. Engaging with caregivers and having daily contact. Don't dismiss behaviour at home as that there must be something wrong at home. The slightest incident at school can set off a trauma meltdown at home where the child feels safe to explode. Having a daily check-in with the child with a trusted member of staff and doing this consistently can really help. Help them to engage with their peers and make friends by doing joint games, joint curricular activities. Give them individual targeted support. Prepare a child for known changes, i.e. changes of staff, school trips, a fire alarm going off, anything that might be a disruptive to their daily routine. Focus on what makes them feel safe: a toy, a safe space to go, a safe person, safe activities, a sense of belonging. And what are the benefits of putting all this in place? Firstly, a child that feels understood, happy, and safe. Targeted support for that particular child, which will give them better educational outcomes. A young person who can understand their triggers and learn to manage them and be able to ask for support when they need it, knowing that they will get it. A happier teacher and class because the child is well supported and the teacher no longer feels disempowered by the child's behaviour. A school that has a better understanding of trauma and a support structure in place for all young people who've been affected by it. Also, of how secondary trauma can affect all those who are supporting that child. To summarise, children on an SGO may seem that they need less support than looked after children because they have committed long-term carers who are sometimes related. But they also need a partnership between their school and carer in order to respond to their needs like any other child who has suffered the trauma of being removed from their birth family. I do hope this has been helpful, and if you have any questions, please ask, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Daisy. That was really, really great just to have that overview of your experience. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our research study now that me and Daisy are working on together with a wider team. So we're really seeking to understand a bit more about children on special guardianship orders and their carers. So I'm just going to try and share a video with you now, which talks a little bit more about our project and kind of what we're seeking to do. Here goes. Hi, I'm Lorna. I'm a researcher here at Cardiff University. I'm doing some research at the moment about special guardianship orders in Wales. We know that there are quite a lot of children in Wales who live with a special guardian rather than their parent. And we're really interested in learning just a little bit more about these families. We'd like to invite children aged 4 to 7 to come and visit us at the university with their special guardian to take part in some research, to learn a little bit more about what can help these children settle into school when they're first starting that new phase of their life. If you are interested in taking part, watch this video, which will tell you exactly what the day will look like, and if you choose to come into the university and what you can expect.
Here at Cardiff University, at the Neurodevelopment Assessment Unit, or NDAO for short, we are interested in understanding the emotional, behavioural and social difficulties that some young children may experience. Children aged between 4 and 7 years can be referred to the NDAO by their school teachers if the teachers would like to know more about any difficulties a child may have across a range of skills and abilities that are important for learning and behaviour. Each child and their parent will visit us here in the NDAO for an assessment, and the results of the assessment are fed back to the school with the aim of shaping the support that the school provides. In this video, we are going to show you what happens during a visit to the NDAO so that you know what to expect during your visit. When you visit the unit, a member of our team will welcome you and explain what you'll be doing on the day. They will also answer any questions that you may have. Children who visit us will take part in a series of games, puzzles and activities in our specially designed research room. They will do lots of different activities. Each activity has been designed with children in mind. There are activities on the computer, there are games with toys, there are puzzles on a tablet, and we will also be doing some activities using books or by asking questions. So there will be lots of things to do, and most children enjoy doing these activities. We find out more about the different skills and abilities that a child has. For example, their memory, language, attention, and emotions. While the child is doing the activities, the parent will be in another room nearby, answering some questionnaires about the child's development, emotions, and behavior. At the end of your visit, we will also ask you whether you would like to be invited to take part in other studies in the future. The information that we collect during your visit will be brought together in the form of a report. We send this report back to the teachers at your child's school. This will help the teachers to understand better why some children have difficulties at school, and it may help shape the support that children receive at school. Every child who visits us for an assessment receives a small present as a way of saying thank you for working so hard before they go back home.
So thank you for taking the time to watch that video. Hopefully that gives people a little bit of insight into what it looks like for families if they want to take part in the research. So we are still open for referrals for the study. As it mentions at the start there, we're really kind of focused on children aged 4 to 7 because that's what the activities are designed for. However, for children with special guardianship orders, we're not just focused on children where they have specific needs that have been identified, but actually all children with a special guardianship order within that age. So we are open to any child, whether or not you have specific concerns. So if you would like to make a referral to be part of the study, if you've got a child in your class that you think would meet the study requirements, you can get in touch with me and I can share my contact details at the end, or our study email address. So that email address that you saw at the end of the video, sgo@cardiff.ac.uk, and we can share the slides with our contact details as well. So thank you very much, and hopefully we've got some time for some questions now.